In this video, I'm going to talk about my second rental property. I'm going to walk you through the numbers. I'm going to talk about how I bought it, but most importantly, I'm going to show you how I was able to buy it without using any of my own money. And then I'm going to break it down in simple steps so you can do the same thing. And then we're going to flash forward to today. I'm going to tell you how much equity that one property has created and talk about how much cash flow I've been able to get from that one property. One rental property can change your life. Let's go on the whiteboard. I'm going to break it down and show you how I was able to not use any of my own money with the BRRRRS method. If you haven't heard of it, I have a ton of videos on my channel, so check those out, but I'm going to quickly explain it here. It stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and scale. And as of yesterday, I am currently sitting on $20 million worth of real estate that I have bought without using any of my own money with this method. So it works. All right, let's break down the specific property. The first thing you need to do is buy the property. So I bought this property for $55,000. Pretty simple, right? Then I ended up rehabbing it and putting $15,000 into it. I told you didn't have to use any of your own money, and I wasn't lying. So I ended up borrowing $70,000 total from my private money lender. His name is Steve. You can use a hard money lender or a private money lender. I use Steve. So he wrote me a check for $70,000. I bought the house at a discount because it was distressed, and I put $15,000 into it. Back then, my second property, Lucas and I were doing a lot of the work ourselves, so it probably realistically needed more like 20 to 25, but we did a lot of the work ourselves to make the deal work. So we borrowed $70,000 from him, we bought the house at a discount, and we fixed it up. So now we have $70,000 of our private money lender's money in the deal. How do we get him his money back without using any of ours? Get ready to show you, but before I move on, note that yes, this is a cheaper property, but this works at higher price points. I wanted to give you some real numbers, but this works at $100,000, $200,000, even $300,000 houses as long as they cash flow. So this is just a real life example. The price can go up, and you'd be surprised at the prices you can get houses for if you're buying them at a discount that are distressed. All right, so 70 grand of Steve's money in the deal. I need to get him his money back, but I don't want to use any of mine. The next thing you do, get the property rented, all right? I believe we got this rented at the time for $850 a month. So that's pretty simple, right? Buy a house, use somebody else's money, fix it up, use their money, get it rented. Now it gets a little more complicated. Apparently I denote complication with circles. That's why I'm circling this letter. So this is the key step. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is where you start to do some fancy footwork and get other people paid without using any of your own money. So you take your rented, fixed up property. That's key. It must be rented and it must be fixed up to a small local bank. Not your big box banks, your First State Bank of this county, those small local banks that have 5 or 10 branches. You take your rented fixed up property to those banks and they will most likely do a cash out refinance is what we're getting ready to talk about. The reason you wait to this point, because those type of banks don't want anything to do with properties that aren't fixed up. I get asked all the time, why don't you just go straight to the bank? Because the bank does not want to lend you any money on a property that needs work or that's not lived in. Guess what? You did the work and it's lived in and it's collecting rent. So now you take it to the small local banks. I didn't really believe this the first time I did it, or still kind of have to pinch myself because it's crazy. These small local banks will write you a check for up to 80% of the appraised value. So they will send out a third-party appraiser and they're going to get the value of the property because they're going to give you a loan for up to 80%. They're not real estate investors. They don't want to lend you more than the property's worth, obviously. They want to feel like they're in a secure position. That's why they're loaning you 80%. This specific property ended up appraising for $95,000. Remember, I bought it at a discount and added value, forced appreciation. I forced value by repairing it, and I bought it at a discount because it needed that repair. So anyways, they wrote me a check. They literally hand you a cashier's check like cash for 80% of 95 grand, which in this case is 76,000. Starting to see some parallels here. So I took that cashier's check the bank gave me and I actually paid back my initial lender, Steve. It can be a hard money lender or a private money lender. This example is Steve, a private money lender. I paid him back roughly that amount. I think we pocketed a little bit, but let's not worry about that. So he wrote me a check for 70 grand. I bought a house at a discount, fixed it up, got it rented, took it to the bank, and then I wrote him a check back for around that $76,000. So he made 6 grand. He profited. in about 90, 95 days without doing anything. He wrote a check and got a check. So that's why it's a beautiful thing for those private money lenders. In this video above, I talk about how you can find your own private money lender. I just dropped it. It's a great way to go out there and get your own private money lender, because if and when you find your private money lender, your whole real estate investing career will change overnight. All right, paid Steve back, he's gone, plus interest. Now, the bank wrote me a check for 76 grand. Love them, but they didn't just give me the money, right? Just like he didn't give you the money. They're expecting their money back plus interest. Same with the bank. So they wrote me that check for 76 grand. I do owe them that $76,000, but it's in the form of a mortgage over 25 years at about 3.5%, 4%. So I owe them a mortgage plus all owning expenses. I own this house. Yeah, the bank's gonna have a mortgage lien on it, but I own it. So I have real estate taxes I have to pay, I have insurance I have to pay, I have maintenance I have to pay. I have a lot of owning expenses that go into owning that property. Fortunately, looking at the numbers with that mortgage plus all owning expenses, I still don't have to come out of pocket because the tenant's rent pays the mortgage plus all owning expenses. And this specific property, if I remember correctly, I think it was right around $200 a month left over after all those expenses, cash flow. So before we get on to scale, just quickly, let's recap. Bought a house, fixed it up, didn't use any of my own money, got it rented, took it to a bank. They gave me money to pay back that initial lender. I owe the bank money now, but it's over a long period of time, so it's low payments. So my low payments plus my own expenses are paid by the tenant, plus I get $200 a month cash flow. Now I'm gonna flash forward to today here in a minute and show you what the numbers look like today. But before I do that, let's talk about scaling. You probably have seen this method, if not from me, maybe from BRRRR or other channels where they say buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. Repeat to me is just go back and do what you did. I'm trying to make it a little more editable and you can sink your teeth into it. So I changed that repeat to scale. That's an acronym. This is an acronym. I go over a lot of detail of how to scale in my mentorship, which there's information below in the description, but I'm going to briefly talk about it now. So in order to scale, you have to do certain steps, and each of these letters is a step. You have to create systems and processes, get S, systems and processes around each of these letters. It takes time, it takes discipline, but you can do it. I can show you how to do it as well, but you need to create systems and processes so you can get better as you go. You need to get involved in your local community, and you need to get involved in some type of coaching in order to help flash forward and help get you to where you want to go quicker by having a coach help you overcome obstacles and by being involved in your community and getting to know the people that you need to know in your specific community. The next is accountability. You need to hold yourself accountable as well as your tenants, as well as your contractors. There just needs to be a culture of accountability in order to scale. Next is lead flow. You need to increase your lead flow. If you want to buy 20 houses next year without using any of your own money, you can, but you're probably going to need about 100 leads to do that. So you have to figure out ways to increase your lead flow. Then the last is extra funding. You need to get extra funding at the buy, the rehab, and the refinance steps. It takes time to do all of that, but if you do all of that and if you work towards that on every property, you will start churning these things, churning them, and growing massive wealth, because this is one example. Now, that was 6 years ago. Let's look at what it looks like now. All right, so in 2015, when I bought the property, I ended up getting it to a value of $95,000, and I owed $76,000. So I had a little less than $20,000 in equity. That's nice. And I was getting $200 a month cash flow. Fast forward just 6 years later, the market's been good, but in general, over that period of time, real estate usually goes up. It's went up pretty good. That property is conservatively probably worth more like $150,000, worth $140,000. So the property went up in value. I didn't do anything but maintain it, that the tenant paid me to maintain it. And then the tenant ended up paying the mortgage down plus all other owning expenses. So I went from a little less than $20,000 in equity to $80,000 in equity, and I didn't have to do anything. So my net worth went up $80,000 just over one property. Plus I got that $200 a month cash flow, which equals about $15,000. Now I know that's not $100,000 in my pocket like that in, the matter of a year doing a big massive flip, but it's extremely conservative and safe way to build long-term wealth, because that property is going to keep going up in value. Let's have some fun. In about 4 years, that property is probably going to be worth about $165,000, and it's going to be paid down probably to about $45,000. So in a few more years, it starts to snowball. That one property is I'm going to have $120,000, and it just keeps going, and you can sell it, or you can tap into that equity. You just have unlimited options, because this is just one property. Imagine doing this 5, 10, 15, 20 times. Real estate investing is extremely powerful, and this is just a simple example of what one property can do. If you enjoyed this and got any value out of this, please make sure to hit that like button, comment in the comments section when you're going to start investing in real estate.